so funny. We're starting. It's real. It's happening. It's happening.
I just slugged that water, so I got to pee midway through the show. I like calling it a show.
Finally got hurt doing the podcast.
Welcome to Wrench Life with the Y. Because there's nothing as good. Damn it. There's nothing as valuable. It's feeling good.
Hell yeah, brother.
I am your co-host. You can call me Wrench. I'm here with Blaise, the usual duo.
The other co-host.
Right? Because there's two co-hosts.
Yeah. You
Co-host.
wouldn't you have to... my brain doesn't work today. Is it that way?
Yeah, you're pretty good. Your levels look okay. This is like episode 7.
That's crazy.
It's
Stay
like,
out of fuss like poetry.
yeah. I've been busy, and I know we got to do the Freudian one. No, we did the Freudian one. We got to do the young one and the micronutrition one, but I just wanted to maybe take a step back because they've all been pretty dense and just kind of talk about life a little bit. Like you said earlier, Matt Smith has been following your restaurant drama.
It's pretty great.
So I thought I could try to like pull in a little bit of, at the bottom of the infographic, which is behind me. If you're watching, if you're not, it's wrenchlife.com/philosophy. You can find this image. The bottom, like the whole system stands on you, and you and your goals and your values in that order. So I just want to talk about you, and by you, I mean, we kind of need to identify you a little bit, right?
Oh, okay.
But I was going to open up with just a little some statistics, okay?
Statistics.
So this is a survey of teenagers between 13 and 17, done in September of 2018, right? And this is they asked them about problems, and they'd say whether the responses would be whether is it a major problem, a minor problem, or not a problem. At the top of the list for severity, we had anxiety and depression, where 70% of 13 to 17-year-olds say anxiety and depression is a major problem. 26% said minor problem, and only 4% said not a problem. Now, we don't know if that is in relation to their life or their perspective of like life,
Mm-hmm. Especially if when they're on Facebook,
Yeah.
everyone's complaining about their anxiety and depression.
And then the next one down is bullying, which I did that podcast about bullying on the Breaking Free Speech podcast. 55% say bullying's a major problem. God, so soft.
Because everyone keeps telling them it's a problem.
Yeah, and then 35 say not a problem, 10% or 35 say minor, 10 say none. Drug addiction, 51 major, 35 minor. Drinking alcohol, 45 major, 39 minor, 16% say not a problem. Poverty, 40% of 13 to 17-year-olds in the United States believe that poverty is a problem. 47 say say it's a minor problem. 13 say it's not a problem. Again, you don't know the context of that question, whether it's within their lives, within local or global, right? And let's say teen pregnancy, 34 say major, 44 say minor, 20 say not a problem. Gangs, 33% say it's a problem, 38% say not a problem. That would also probably be relative to geographic location. So so I basically wanted to say, for the outline, I wanted to open with that graph and touch on a couple things, and then say how I want to point out in this I have a lot of graphs for this one. Giraffes?
Giraffes.
Mm-hmm. That when it comes to statistics and reporting on statistics, it's not always as clear as it may seem. Mm-hmm. Like we just said, like if you were this study, it says it was teens ages 13 to 17, conducted on September 17, through November 28th, 2018. where was that done will dictate a little bit of the answer, right? So I want to basically point out that, everyone should kind of be fact-checking and wary of the details within the statistics that people share to you.
I also always think about, especially with a survey like that, thinking back to when I was in like middle and high school and getting a survey like that and being like, this is stupid. I'm going to write down that I'm like a 35-year-old Filipino male because it's funny. And then just like not answer the questions at all.
Well, the scary thing, not to get too political here, but the Democratic Party right now, one of the things their platforms are on for the 2020 election is lowering the voting age to 16.
Why?
Well, I'm going to get into that. Well, if you look at this poll, and I'll tell you why the poll is pretty reliable in a minute. If half of the teens think that poverty is a major issue, and bullying is a major issue, a lot of those things are kind of in line with a lot of Democratic philosophy. Mm-hmm. So obviously, if they wanted to lower the age, they know they're seeing it as, oh, we can pull these people into our voting pool. Mm-hmm. If 13 to 17-year-olds right now are trending to be more conservative, there's no way the Democratic Party would be pushing to get them into the voting pool because it's not going to help them because they don't actually care about what helps. They care about getting reelected for the most part, although there's variance there. So I thought it'd be accurate here because we're going to talk about millennials. I just wanted to outline exactly what everyone's like, what the hell's a millennial? It's like, I never caught that Pokemon. There are also sometimes called echo boomers because they're the children of baby boomers. Mm. So it's like, they're like, it's a second boom, but a smaller boom that's echoing, right? Generally, according to Wikipedia, they say it's people born in the early 80s through the early 2000s. But PBS, CBS, ABC, the Washington Post, the LA Times have all defined it as 81 to 96 in years of birth. Now, all the study/poll I talked about earlier, and then I'm going to use it in all the subsequent polls for this podcast are all from Pew Research Center. Pew Research Center. Pew, pew. And they define millennials as also 81 to 96. So that generally is the consensus. 81 to 96, you're a millennial. Now, that last poll I was just talking about was actually people younger than millennials. But still,
was it Gen X, Gen Y, or something?
It'd be Y. So, according to according to Wikipedia, which is according to Pew Research, they say as of 2019, the Pew Research Center defines millennials as born 81 through 96. They chose these dates because of political and economic and social factors, including September 11th, the Great Recession, and the explosion of the internet. Yeah, but they also said it is still somewhat open to interpretation. So millennial is still, I guess, a little bit vague. But other publications have adopted this per what Pew Research says, which is Time Magazine, the Washington Post. Will all say they'll all reference the Pew Research definition of it. Now we're talking about Pew Research. Maybe you've never heard of it. I got into that little talk with a friend the other day about religion and stuff, and I cited a Pew Research poll, and party I was debating with didn't agree with the poll, so wanted to throw the poll out because they thought it must have been a conservative viewpoint, because I wasn't really necessarily arguing a conservative viewpoint. But anyway, Pew Research, this is according to them, which is also what they are defined as on Wikipedia is the same description as they're defined as on their site. So the Pew Research Center is a nonpartisan American fact tank based in New York. Sorry, I don't know why I said New York. It says Washington, D.C. What?
New York's the greatest country in America.
Yeah. So it provides information on social issues, public opinion, demographic trends that shape the United States and the world. It also conducts public opinion polling, demographic research, media content analysis, and other empirical social science research. The Pew Research Center does not take any policy positions, and it's a subsidiary of the Pew Charitable Trusts. Okay? Now, because it's Pew, the pews in the church hallways, you might be inclined to believe that maybe they are on the right.
I think pew, like the gun nuts always say pew pew. Pew pew.
Oh man, I must have deleted this thing that was on here.
Was this the were you reading off of this website the other day when you were just like railing off random statistics? Which I guess is all the time.
On the podcast?
No, at the skate park we were hanging out and you were like...
That was the one based on how often people pray.
What?
I was talking to Troy about whether religion is important or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying that, a good amount of people just need guidance with their moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reflected in a lot of the big psychologists. Like with Freud, we talked about like the herd or whatever, and like that there's people that just need a little, there's a whole spectrum, right? Everything's a spectrum, like gender apparently. There's certain people that can contemplate existential things and think bigly, think large, and they don't really need help with morality. They can just dissect it themselves. Mm-hmm. And then there's people in life who, if they have, a faith group, a strong family, a good partner, everything on their side, they're still going to deteriorate into like a life of just, nonsense and mm-hmm. whatever, because there's a spectrum of people, how much guidance people need,
Mm-hmm.
So I said to, the argument on one side was that religion is dumb and nobody needs it. And my argument was that, well, it's not dumb and some people
do need
some aspects of it. Like I wasn't like, they were arguing black and white and I was arguing it's gray essentially. And I said Pew Research study this year said that 53% of Americans claim to pray daily. And Troy, sorry, I don't want to give out his name. He was like, that's ridiculous. That must be a conservative, blah, blah, blah. And I got the Pew Research study through an article from Vox magazine, which is a very left-leaning online magazine. But an interesting fact about that study, which would be a cool fact for the podcast, is that, and this is the only country in the world within that study that said this, less than 50% of Americans say they're religious. Mm-hmm. It might have been termed deeply religious, but 53% of Americans say they pray daily.
That's really interesting.
So there's probably like 5 to 7% of the U.S. population, which is probably like something crazy, like tens of millions of people mm-hmm. who say they're not religious but pray every day. It's pretty fascinating, right?
Interesting.
Which I used to be like religion's dumb and stupid and doesn't freaking matter. But once I got into mindfulness training, it's like, well, to sit down and to say to yourself or to some omnipotent God or mm-hmm. whatever, to acknowledge the worst parts of your life and thank something for the best parts of your life is essentially like low resolution mindfulness training.
Yeah. Well, I was always under the same, not the same guys of like religion's stupid and dumb, but I definitely used to think that, but then it's like stuff happens. You're like, that's too coincidental. That's too weird. And sometimes you're like, maybe there's something a little bigger or whatever.
Well, the problem is that
the universe is so big.
Yeah, when you're young, or if you're like super science minded, you look at religion only for its fairy tale aspect. You forget that religion is a really because if you don't care about it and you think it's dumb, why are you going to spend any time to think about it? Mm-hmm. But then you realize there's religion plays a lot of different roles. And there's certain roles it played in the past which are obsolete because better things came along, like science. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of write off that stuff. But there's other things. It's kind of like a wiki of knowledge, And when we get into Jungian psychology, there's things that echo in that with archetypes and everything. But the thing that I deleted from my outline here was that there's a website that I now don't remember what it was, but it was about like fact-checking biases. I can look it up right now.
Jamie, pull it up.
Yeah, right. I saw there's a Jamie pull it up shirt or like pull that shit up or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I Googled Pew Research bias, right? Mm-hmm. And what I got was so this is the website mediabiasfactcheck.com, and some of the fact checking sites are kind of biased, which is hilarious because But according to mediabias/factcheck.com, they say they rate this. There's a spectrum of extreme left to extreme right. Mm-hmm. This Pew Research is least bias, saying very central.
Hmm.
And they're also ranked as being they have like a like a numbered score for like how, where'd it go? Whatever. That it basically says they're very, very data oriented and not biased. So that's one of the points I was gonna say. Like when you see a research or an article or a study or anything, whether it's about some study or supplement, it's like you should always double check it. Like third party testing is really, really important. I don't know why browser switched to Yahoo search.
Weird.
Conspiracy theory. Yeah, so to give you an example, what Pew Research does is this is the first thing on their site right now, and it's the percentage who say Trump has done blank in distancing himself from white nationalists, right? So they either say too much, about the right amount, or too little. So generally, people who were polled for the study, 7% of people said he's done too much to distance himself from white nationalists. Those might actually be white nationalists who said that. About 29% of people said he did about the right amount, and 56% of people say he's done too little to distance himself from the white nationalists. And then they broke it down to people that identified as Dem or lead Dem or Republican or lean Republican. So 83% of people that lean Democratic say Trump hasn't done enough to distance himself from white nationalists. So you could say generally a poll like this could be skewed by geographic location based on who they're polling and where their leanings are. So I don't know, but that generally their site is just loaded with all kinds of studies and research like that. So they're all over the place. So before we jump back into millennials, why don't you tell me where you're at, Blaise? Because we're gonna try to tie this into your life. And I'm not saying you're like a dumb millennial, and I'm not saying millennials are dumb.
I'm kind of a dumb millennial.
Maybe.
I don't know. What do you mean where I'm at? Like where I'm at with my life?
Well, so some people are interested in your restaurant story. So.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, first of all, how old are you?
24. Jeff Gordon years old.
What year were you born?
94.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're on the tail end of a millennial.
Yeah.
I'm on the first half. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
So obviously you work in a restaurant. We
Yeah.
can talk about that. How long have you been working in restaurants?
I've been working in restaurants since I think I was 16. I got my first dishwashing job. So like 8 years I've been in the industry.
And you did some schooling, like you did a vocational program through school?
I don't know. I think I've talked about it on the podcast, but yeah, I went to vocational school for 2 years in high school. I think it's a super important thing.
That was like the latter half of high school?
Yeah, so I found out about it, I think, my sophomore year because one of my friends was in the BOCES culinary program, and I probably wouldn't have graduated high school if I didn't do that. I didn't find anything else that interested me or could get me to do work other than cooking. Yeah. So all my other grades were C's and terrible, barely passing. And then I was an honor student in the vocational school. So
then one way or another, you ended up working at probably one of the most reputable restaurants in, you could say the greater Rochester area, as if there's any good restaurants that are outside.
Well, there is actually in the outskirts, in the Finger Lakes and stuff. There's actually a lot of really good restaurants.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So in the distilleries and wineries and stuff, there's a lot of good spots.
So how did you end up working at such a good restaurant?
Basically I got an internship through that culinary program, and I worked at what was the best restaurant in Rochester for many years and was the first high-end bistro-y type, I guess, restaurant. I don't know how to describe it. Two Vine was a huge deal 20 years ago. And so I got an internship there, and from there I worked with one guy who worked at somewhere else, and I kept following him around until eventually I was at the bakery, and then through them being next to Cure, I got a job at Good Luck from just knowing people, which is a cool thing about the restaurant industry. So you can just, until this year I didn't have a resume.
So generally, it's not hard to get a kitchen job generally because they're always looking for cooks.
Yeah, basically, if you have a pulse and you can hold a knife, you can probably get a restaurant job.
But so easy to get in, but hard to climb, would you say? Yeah,
I'd say so. I mean, it hard to climb depending on where you are. in the industry where
Now,
you're.
is there a big difference between like just like a random place that makes food and a place that like I don't know, gives a shit about their food? Like,
Yeah.
is there like a line?
For sure. I mean, there's a billion restaurants.
Oh yeah.
Every place that serves food you could classify as a restaurant, and most of them don't care. If you say take like a diner for example, like just a generic diner, almost all of the food in all of those diners is exactly the same and made in a factory and reheated. And like, if you look at a menu, it has like chicken fingers and onion rings and all these different like fried foods. It's almost just all boxes of bagged frozen food that you just throw in a fryer.
And where you were working is not like that?
No.
Anything frozen?
No.
Is the ice frozen?
Yeah. They actually
the water's frozen.
They have 3 different ice machines there of different sizes.
Why? Why'd you do that?
So
is it artisanal ice?
Yeah.
Actually,
there's 4 different kinds of ices there because there's a guy in Rochester that makes ice cubes and sells them. They're like $1 a piece. They're like those perfect inch by inch or 2 inch by.
He makes them.
Yeah, he freezes water and sells them to restaurants. Yeah, they're like
wow.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's super nice. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're selling frozen water.
Pretty chill.
Yeah, he's terminally chill.
Oh God.
So, and that's a whole nother thing. That's the craft cocktail movement. The perfectly distilled and clear ice cubes are a thing that all these people want to have. So we would have the big square ice cubes, which are cool. Those are the normal cocktail ice cubes. Yeah. Pebble ice, and then we had a ice machine just for the kitchen. Okay. Sorry.
We don't need to talk about ice. Abolish ice. So you ended up at a good restaurant.
Yes.
And where did you so you have different stations in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so
is each, like, obviously there's a hierarchy. There's people that are just like preparing food, and then there's like something management or whatever. Is every station kind of the same?
Yes and no. There's entry level stations and higher level stations.
And what would dictate a higher level station? Is it just busier, more complex?
Yes and yes. So like
decisions between ice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So what would differentiate? Like I started on what's called garde or pantry or salads. That is an interesting one because it can be a bunch of different things. It could be really simple, or you could make it very intricate, and eventually work my way from garde to pizza to fryer.
Because you don't make any friends with salad.
Yeah, you don't make any friends with salad. So I want to make some friends.
Yeah.
So we went from that to pizza.
Well, you probably don't have to worry about overcooking or undercooking salads.
That too, yeah. You're basically, for the most part, you're just putting dressing on greens, and it's a lot of knife work, and it's a good place to start because you have to. They're responsible for some of the most things. Like if you look at the garde prep list, it's like 35 different things that you have to be, but a lot of it's simple stuff. Like I need to open this bag of greens, or I need to clean these greens. But then you go to something like fish or pizza, or fish or pasta, which would be usually more menu items, more intricate plating, more challenging techniques in cooking, and more time-intensive things. Like there would be some things on the menu that would take many days to prepare, and you'd have to understand your pars and how many things you have.
Yeah, so you'd be prepping a couple of days out. So you'd be working with multiple timelines, which is generally can be difficult for some people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I work my way all the way from there to what would be the top of the hierarchy on the line. So as I was at the top of all the cooks. I had done every single station. I understood every part of it, and I was promised a promotion into the sous chef position, which would be
more management.
Yeah, more management based, and
so that would involve what, like ordering?
Yeah, which I was doing. Like I was ordering all the produce and the dry and all the stuff that the kitchen needed.
Wait, let me just step back for a second. Generally in the kitchen, how many like levels of position are there? Like obviously the top is the chef.
Yep.
The chief.
The chief.
Yeah.
So this guy named Escoffier in like the early 1900s, I think, in France, implemented the brigade system in the kitchen. So it's militaristic and hierarchical.
Yeah, hierarchical.
So it would go chef, chef de cuisine, and the chef de cuisine I always describe as like if say Gordon Ramsay has 100 restaurants or whatever, which I think he actually does. He is the chef of every restaurant that he owns, but he has a chef de cuisine who is also the chef of every restaurant. So there's one chef de cuisine at each restaurant that handles the things that the chef or owner would do while the owner chef is not there.
Okay.
So under them would be the sous chef. I think everyone understands that. That's like the second chef. That would be like...
Now, would the chef de cuisine generally be in the kitchen all the time?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like the chef...
And the main chef may not be.
Exactly. Okay. So like the main chef would be responsible for like, giving the general outline of what the restaurant is about, the food, and making big decisions like hiring and managing maybe the front of the house stuff depending on how the restaurant's set up.
Okay, yeah.
So the sous chef would be the assistant to the chef de cuisine. They handle a lot of it's just like delegating tasks that the chef may not have time or need to do. So the sous chef would sometimes do the ordering. And come up with specials and be a proficient line cook. So as the sous chef, you're basically the most proficient of the line cooks and also taking on a managerial role.
So like the chef would pick kind of like the style of food and what kind of dishes, and then the chef de cuisine would be like, yeah, well, these are some dishes within that realm that my staff is capable of doing.
Exactly.
And then he would turn to the sous chef and be like, yo, order the stuff so we can make this
based
on how busy we are or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it kind of it breaks up the tasks because and in some smaller operations, there might just be a chef and a sous chef and maybe a line cook. Yeah. But if you're looking at a bigger picture, that's it. So under that is called the chef de partie, or the line cook, the chef of the station. And so that would be, each, at least at Good Luck, each person mans their own station, and you are responsible for making sure you have all of the things you need for that station and being ready for service and working service every day.
So did you work every station there?
Yeah. Apparently I was the only person to do that.
And then you were pseudo sous chef. They promised you, so you took on additional responsibility.
Yep.
In exchange for an actual promotion in the future.
Yep. And that was tied up a lot of was tied up because of a project. They were opening a space next door, and the person who I would be replacing was going to move over to that space next door. So because of that space didn't get built as fast as they wanted it to, because restaurants, a lot like skate parks, never open when they're supposed to. There's a lot of red tape and
for sure,
contractors, whatever that so that just didn't.
So what'd you do?
I quit.
Oh, geez.
So that just didn't happen the way I wanted it to.
So why? When you quit, what if I asked you the day you quit? You would say, "What? Tell me why you quit the day you quit." Exactly what we just said.
Yeah, I mean, I felt as though I was promised something that didn't come when I was told it would.
How long ago was this now?
3 months ago. 4 months when I put my notice in. So
now, would you still agree with everything you said? The reasons you quit are still the reasons you quit.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think a lot of it went the way I thought it would. I don't doubt that I would have gotten this promotion eventually, but I was frustrated in the way it was handled.
So in the perfect world that you'd say, well, I'm quitting, and they're like, well, no, don't quit, stay, and here's a raise, and here's everything you wanted. It's not a perfect world, but in a more realistic version, what happens after you leave a restaurant like that, which is a pinnacle restaurant in the area?
Well,
what did you want to do?
I wanted to move. Because I feel as though there's nowhere else in the city that I would learn what I want. I would learn as much as I can. I would not be learning as much at I don't think there's anywhere else. There's no other chef in the city I want to work for and learn from, barring next door, because I can't
at
work
least
there.
that you're
That I'm able to work at. So I wanted to move to expand because like I said, I didn't even need a resume until this year, because just working in the city, I can find jobs easy enough, but a resume is just as important as a degree in culinary, because a degree is becoming something that's chefs don't even care about, barring some realms.
You get like a degree in gender studies, cuisine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a lot of these kids come out of these culinary schools, like the Culinary Institute of America, the CIA, and it's like a $100,000 degree in a field where you're lucky to make 40, 50 grand a year. It's not. You're not.
And if you've never been in a kitchen, man, they should just throw you in a run a deep fryer at a grill in a busy bar on a Saturday night and be like, yeah, do this for 6 months. It's like, and then learn the hard stuff.
Exactly. And so these kids come out of this school thinking, well, I have this degree, I'm so good now. And then you put them on the line and they can't handle it. And if you put me, I might not know all of the technical different recipes or whatever that some of these kids might know, but I could handle my own on a line better than most people. And that's what's not as teachable. You could teach a person a recipe or a technique, but you can't teach work ethic and holding your own in a busy situation.
For sure.
So
where are you now?
I'm at a different restaurant, and it's the first time I've just had a job in a long time where I just needed work, and it's just different. It's a different pacing. It's a very different restaurant. I'm coming from a place where I didn't have time to stand still and hang out.
So this is a lot mellower.
It's a lot mellower.
Slower, a lot easier.
Just because
less responsibility.
Yeah, for sure. Way less responsibility. At the end of my good luck stint, it was...
Would you say that having less workload and less responsibility has made your life less meaningful?
Yeah, probably.
Right?
Yeah. I feel a little lost. A little like it's I was pouring my whole life into what I was doing every day, and now I'm not. I just kind of show up and make my hands do things, and then I go home. I don't have to do much.
It's like that expression. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. Yeah. But obviously, without a destination, there is no journey.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not working towards anything. I'm not like trying to work my way up anything. I'm just there doing my job every day. So you're just which is a weird thing because
you're content.
Yeah,
you're not satisfied.
Yeah, I'm not challenged or anything, and I'm trying to be careful because I want everyone I know to end up. People might listen. We're on a podcast, so I don't want it to sound like I'm talking crap about everybody. Even though I do that a lot. I've been trying to get a lot better at that.
It's a skill I've been working diligently on for years, and I'm still not good at it. Just trying to be honest and real and not, take anyone down a notch that doesn't, even if they do deserve to be taken down a notch, it's like you don't want to do that in a public forum.
Yeah, and I'm realizing
this isn't like the thing about what we're doing here. It's not about like we're talking about what's like the things that are happening externally that we are internalizing. So we're not actually trying to talk about the people you work with and the restaurants you've worked at and what people have done to you. We're not talking about the fact that your boss just let you leave. We're talking about how you let yourself leave and what you're doing after the fact.
And in my chef's mind, and I've talked to him recently, and he still definitely feels the same way, is that he did everything he could to help me and get me towards the goals that I had. And in his eyes, I just wasn't, I didn't want to do it. And he's right in that I didn't want to do it his way. And I think that's kind of where he and I butted heads, and we're both stubborn. And I think that's
pretty much where I wanted to go. It's like, how has your perspective changed now that you're in this other position and you feel, probably somewhat trapped?
Yeah, it's, I definitely would have done things a little different. I probably would have stuck it out a little longer. I don't think I would I don't think I'd still be there right now. Maybe, I don't know. It's weird because my mentor is leaving there, and I don't think I would stay unless I was moved into his position, which I don't think would have happened. I probably wouldn't have stayed.
Well, that would be difficult if you've worked every station, and you would certainly know more about the inner workings of that kitchen rather than over any other person they'd hire, because none of them have done that. So that puts you in a weird position for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been I think what I'm frustrated with now is that, like I said to you at Bantam the other day, was like, this is my backup plan, and it's frustrating to sit there and look at myself objectively and figure out what I want and what I need and where I'm at, and just do the thing that sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect segue there, because I wanted to transition back into, talking about millennials and like the fact that you are willing to sit down and be like, well, I feel this way, and trying to be honest with yourself about the mistakes you made or didn't make. And also honest the fact that had you never left, you would never even have the perspective to do it, because the perspective is a crazy thing to have. It's like that, I love talking shit on memes. There's that one meme where it's like it's a 6 on the ground, and one cartoon character's like, that's a 6, and the other guy's like, no, it's a 9.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, idiot. It's like, yeah, it's both and a 6 and a 9 and a million other things that you can't see. But before we jump back into millennials, I think we should do our mindful moments now, because we're pretty far in now.
Yeah.
So, what you got one for me?
I got a beautiful one from last night. That was pretty good.
Well, let's do a little bit of that. It's everyone's favorite. It's a great song. I've been listening ever since this. I've been listening to tons of classical music.
Yeah.
It's so soothing.
Pretty nice. Just doing that and listening to that once or twice a week is a mindful moment in itself.
Well, I picked that carefully because that rising motion, and then when it comes out, it's like it's like an exhale.
Yeah. So last night I got out of work and I hadn't gone to the gym and like I didn't to yesterday or today, and I was like, man, I was like tired and felt like I could go to sleep, but I never do. So I knew I'd just like waste time all night. So I was like, all right, it's nice out. I can get my bike and I'm just gonna do a ride. And I put a Jenny in my little cup holder, and I rode down to the Jenny River Bridge, and I just drank my Jenny, and then I rode back around the city, and I rode home. It was just nice. I sat down on the bridge and just looked at the city, and I thought about how nice it was.
That's a really good reflective moment. I'm like trying to like be conscious to have more mindful moments, because I've been working so much. It's always like, I want to say I'm stressing, but it's not stress in the traditional sense. I'm very aware of all the things I need to do and the deadlines I have to do them, which are self-allocated deadlines, So
yeah.
But I had a really good bike ride the other day, and I had a good moment, and it's like escaping me now, which is sad, which makes me realize I should pay attention more.
That ride on Monday was a pretty wonderful moment in itself. That whole ride was pretty awesome.
That was a great ride.
Yeah, that was fun. Getting spoiled on a $3,000 mountain bike.
Yeah, that ride was great. I had a really good ride with the girlfriend the other day.
Yeah, that sounded really cool.
Just like those, as the weather is changing, and it's getting nicer, and the snow is melting in the sky. Like I've had a lot of like small ones. I'm just riding, and like it hits me for a second. I'm just like, dude, this is just awesome. Like that I could just. Well, I was saying to you the other day, and I had the same conversation with the girlfriend about how when you're riding down the river gorge here, it's like you're only like a quarter mile from being basically in the city, in the suburbs or the city, but it's like you can't see it.
Yeah.
You can kind of hear it, but it's like there's the river, you're in the woods, you're on a trail. It's like it's amazing that we can have that here and get that feeling like you're away from the chaos of life, but you're also really close
I get that at Ellison a lot. Whenever I would be
Yeah, Ellison's great.
around this time of year, I'm usually injured, upset about some girl. And this is just by looking at, that's what's interesting about my Facebook time hop, is like very rigid patterns in my life in around these months. It's like, oh, I'm excited to ride bikes. I'm like, today sucks. I'm hurt and some chick broke my heart and I'm sad. But it's nice out, so I went and walked around Ellison or something.
I used to call it the winter girlfriend season.
What do the millennials call it now? Cuffing season?
Cuffing?
Yeah, I don't
What's
know.
cuffing?
I don't know. I think that's like yeah, I don't know what that.
I don't know. I had a Facebook memory today. I get these occasionally. It's like my old girlfriend, from high school. She's all happily married and everything, and it matured into a beautiful grown woman and everything, and we were just dumb kids back in the day. But I get those Facebook memories. I know she must get them too, and it's just like so weird to be like. And I thought about that movie. God, the girlfriend made me watch it. The Jim Carrey movie, like the memory movie, Spotless Mind. It's like about this like crazy thing where they can erase your memories of someone. It was like too sci-fi-ish for me to really kind of get into.
Is that what prompted the dumb wasting your time on a movie with someone you love tweet?
Well, yeah, I can't think of a bigger waste of time with someone you love than just staring at a screen.
Yeah.
It's like I'd rather just like gaze into each other's eyes like you and I are doing right now, please. Yeah, I was thinking about that though, like I get these Facebook memories and you're like, oh, whatever. Like I hold no negative emotion or animosity there, and I don't believe she would either. And then you see it and it's like, oh, okay, well, when I was mad and younger, I'd be like, nah, fuck that, whatever.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, we shared some time.
Yeah.
That's cool. And like, it crossed my mind for a second. Like, I could just turn the memories off. Like, we could filter the memories out. And I thought about that movie. Like, no. You don't want to filter out history, Then you're going to be like.
Well, what an interesting thing. Like, what other generation has had access to their previous self on a daily basis?
Yeah.
And I'm sure most people don't think about it the way you and I are.
Well, yeah, like in line with what I just said to you about perspective and everything, and I just I'm realizing now that I just pointed out the same thing. I used to look at it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I think life is pretty beautiful, and we need to appreciate it more every single day.
Yeah.
We should we should have people call in with their beautiful moments if we did the show live. Do you got any angry moments or chaotic anxiety moments?
I witnessed one at work yesterday that was pretty funny, like a chaotic one.
Yeah.
It's not.
I bowled last night. I didn't lose my temper, so that's pretty good.
Woo.
Yeah. We had they left the bumpers up, so we just bowled with bumpers.
Oh, hell yeah. That must have been great.
Dude, and Josh is going to bowl one time, and as he's on the backswing, I go, I make this noise, and he like throws the ball wide, and it pole jams the front of the bumper, and it's like so loud, and then it goes like basically 45-degree angle across the lane, hits the other bumper, and it like bends all the way in, and it goes ding 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 down the lane. And then also we were the only people there last night. There was no one else bowling, no one else at the bar.
Ooh.
So then when it made this loud noise and we're just hysterically laughing, everyone at the bartenders are like, what are you laughing at? We're like, nothing.
We're just really bad at bowling.
Oh, jeez. I still, Nate still won.
Well, he is a professional bowler. Look at him.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Push out the jive, bring in the love.
We're going to jump back in. Basically, we're just going to talk about some graphs here in context to what, Blaise talking about his perspective, Here's a poll. Again, this is same poll as earlier, 13 to 17-year-olds. So these are people younger than millennials. This is broken down by gender, and it is priorities.
There's got to be a lot of graphs. There's a lot of genders.
Yeah, so generally, you ask 13 to 17-year-olds, boys are 93 and women are 93% in having a career they enjoy. Okay, so pretty much unanimous. 95% of teens want a career they enjoy. Now, not having perspective on, the work that goes along with that or the pay that goes along with that can lead you to really be in a state of anxiety and depression when, getting the job you like is something no one's willing to pay for, and then you can't pay your bills, 13 to 17-year-olds, again, about 81% are think it's important to be helping other people who are in need. So that's cool. It's good to see people care. Here's a little bit of a disparity. Having a lot of money, right? 41% of girls think that's a high priority, and 61% of boys do.
That's probably in relation to the 41% of girls who want.
Yeah, it's equal.
They think it's important.
The boys like, well, what do the girls say?
Yeah.
No. Well, but that's because
subconsciously, I'm sure
it's pretty clear that women pick males by socioeconomic status, and it doesn't exactly work the same way going males picking females.
I was just listening to that on the Peterson thing yesterday. Something about how you have like twice as some weird statistic with your female ancestors, and how many more factors women use to pick a mate than the other way around.
Yeah, because men are kind of dumb and they're like, looks good, in.
Yeah. Perfect.
I didn't mean in like in a sexual way. About 47%. The number, it's 45 and 50, average to 47. Think getting married is important. That's kind of crazy. 39 to 41% say having kids is important. And 9 to 14% say being famous is important, which is kind of crazy. I think that would be higher. But like we said, it depends on the statistics, who you're asking, and all those things. But that's it's general stuff. So here's one of the political thing to keep in mind here. As of 2010, there are now more. That's when the graph of Gen X and younger, which would be millennials and Y, have now passed in the amount of boomers and older in voting. By 2018, they're vastly different. So these millennials are making the majority of political decisions. So that's why these things are really important.
If they vote.
Yeah. So I got a couple of graphs here that point out how, like, there's that myth that people think we have it worse than our parents. Like, we're the first generation that has it worse than our parents. It's like, okay, how are you measuring that? Because there's a lot of different ways. But this is a great graph. So this graph is employment statistics for ages 22 to 37 and divided up by gender. So in the baby boomer era, well, one thing I want to point out about this, which is great, is that they use employed, unemployed, and not in the labor force. Right? So you can look at this chart. I'll show you. When you look at the women, there's a lot that are not in the workforce. And you look at men, there's very few men that are not in the workforce. Probably about at least a 50% disparity. And that's one of the things when you look at gender equality, employment stuff, like the gender pay gap myth.
Yeah.
It's because a lot of women are not in the workforce because they are doing that beautiful, amazing thing that men can't do, which is talk about their feelings. No, I'm kidding. Which is have children. When women leave the workforce, obviously you can't work and have a kid. And like your kid is the most important thing in the world, so you need to take care of your kid.
Exactly.
But even this chart shows we've come a long way in the last 40 years for how much women are in the workforce, right? Which is great. So we are making progress. Oh, jeez. Hold on. There's actually a great website, a page on Pew Research called How Millennials Compare to Their Grandparents, and it's like 16 of these charts. So you could just look that up. So going back to the kids. So these are things that are causing kids stress. So this is broken down by, do they care a lot? Do they care somewhat? Do they care not too much? I'm not going to break down all the numbers, but most kids in high school are very concerned about getting good grades. Like 61% of them are concerned about getting good grades. 29% are really concerned about looking good.
It's important.
But yeah, this chart, this is on that. Like I said, it's Pew Research, how millennials compare to their grandparents. This is just showing what they care about, And it looks better than, like, when they're polling these 13 to 17-year-olds, it seems like they kind of like have a decent head on their shoulders, right?
Yeah, pretty good moral.
But then
compass.
you get into the millennials who are older. It's like something's not manifesting in real life,
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good one. This is 40% of 13 to 70-year-olds feel bored every day.
How do you feel bored? These kids don't know what being bored is before the internet.
85% of teenagers say they feel bored between sometimes and every day. That's insane.
I don't get that.
I would just feel tense and nervous about the day. 29% every day, 45% sometimes. 30% wish they had more good friends. 26% only 26% get excited about when they study something new in school. But so these are showing the main concerns kids have. It's like feeling bored, being tense and nervous about the day, and wishing they had good friends. Those are all within your control.
Mm-hmm. I just don't like.
So showing that they have an idea of what they want to do, pretty good head on their shoulders what they want to do, but then the things that are bothering them seem kind of silly, like feeling bored and feeling nervous about the day. And I got to imagine that those trends 10 years later, when they're between 23 and 27, play out in a greater way that has led us to this existential panic that millennials have, and thinking the world is crumbling down and believing like the world's going to crumble in 12 years if we don't do something about the climate or whatever.
If you've been to the middle of the country, just move everyone there. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So obviously, like, when you look at these charts and you look at these graphs, you want to, question them fairly, and make sure you always question them. Any news outlet that has any sort of political ideology can take one of these charts and be like if you want to say kids are great, you'd be like, well, 61% of kids are concerned about getting good grades. 27% of them are fairly concerned about getting good grades. So you could easily say, 80% of kids are concerned about getting good grades. Kids are great, right? But then you could take the same thing, the same exact chart, and be like, oh, well, half of all the kids don't care about being concerned in extracurriculars. And it's like they're almost the same argument, and you just skew it different ways. You got to be concerned about the phrasing, clickbait headlines, all those things. Like, they always talk about it. They'll use it with mainstream media biasy, where they'll skew perpetrators of crimes. A lot of times they use it as a racially charged argument, where they say loving dad kills whole family for the white guy, but then they'll use something else for a black guy or whatever.
I saw this one. It was like a Amazon warehouse robot, had an aerosol can of bear mace or something. I don't know, and was spraying it all over the warehouse, and people were reposting it on Facebook the robots are taking over, and I looked at the article, and the way it sounded like is, there's just arms that go around in the warehouse, and it probably picked one up, punctured a can, and just kept doing its thing, and no one stopped it. So it's like people are people just picture a robot bear macing employees, and you just read it. It's the same thing. You read into it, and you're like, oh, it's just a mistake. It's not. No, it was that was sort of a revelation for me. It's as stupid as it sounded. All these most headlines are just stupid. It's just clickbaity stuff. Well, yeah. I knew that, but that was just wow, that's people didn't read this at all. If you looked at the article for 2 seconds, you'd understand. But
I'm just glancing down this chart, and it says 54. One of the parameters here is feel targeted by law enforcement. 54% say never, and then 7% say every day. That's crazy. All right, so the point of this podcast, I wanted something that was more like kind of a casual conversation, not so dense as the other ones were, because the little bit of feedback I'm getting from we've moved from 6 to 10 listeners now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I want people to be skeptical and critical of headlines, of charts, of graphs, especially when it pertains to anything about political hysteria, anything that there could be a narrative behind. Like, look at the counter argument. Like, there's like I follow if you're on Twitter, you should follow Nina Trejo. It's like Trey Holtz, it looks like, but it's Trejo. She wrote The Big Fat Surprise. And that book was basically going over all the research on food and how we got fat wrong. And how basically where we started to figure out, the studies that were done that made people think eating fat was bad for you, that it raised your cholesterol, your small particle LDL, and how it's not true. I think she read something like 10,000 studies, journals, or reports. Like, basically read everything she could find from the 60s until now, and then wrote, The Big Fat Surprise. It's a double entendre because it's about fat. But one of the things she does on Twitter, she was actually on Rogan a while ago. One of the things that she does is she constantly retweets bad articles about food, or like, and it makes it so apparent how skewed your information about food is. Like, she'll post like a New York Times article, and it's like, it'll be a misleading headline that fits the traditional narrative of what's good and bad for you food-wise. And then it's like, well, then you actually read the article, and it actually doesn't support the claim in the title. And a lot of times, the people that write the articles don't pick the titles either.
Interesting.
The editors will pick the title, and they talk. I've heard a lot of writers talk about that, how they'll write an honest article, and then the editor just picks a clickbaity title that works for their demographic that doesn't reflect the article, and most people don't actually read the article. They just see, USDA says insert X or Y.
Yeah.
Like we talked about all the time. I talk about this all, like it's my public service announcement. Ibuprofen is terrible for you.
It's scary bad.
On every ibuprofen, it now comes with a FDA warning. And people don't know that. One of my customers' moms is a nurse. She works in a hospital full time. She did not know that. I told her that. She didn't believe me. And then she came back like next time she brought her kid to the park and was like, "Dave, I gotta say, I didn't believe you." And then I looked at the ibuprofen in my house, and I couldn't believe it. It's like, because they've been telling you, when the FDA or the USDA or the media tells you one thing for X amount of years, they can't just turn around and tell you the opposite because it makes them look bad. So they just quietly do it. Like, they've slowly been changing food labeling regulations on stuff like with fat and with salt, and they're like, because there's nothing really wrong with fat, and there's nothing really wrong with salt as long as you get an adequate amount of water in your diet. So like, yeah, to go back to just to touch on the ibuprofen, chronic ibuprofen use defined as, I think it's 2 or 3 times a month, hardens the walls of your veins, and it raises your risk of heart attack and stroke. Also this week, I think it was this week, the FDA. So
scary. People take ibuprofen like candy. I used to.
This is better. This week or last week, it was definitely within the last month, the FDA came out and said they've resynced the recommendation that taking aspirin every day lowers your risk of heart attack. They found a bunch of studies have proven that chronic use of aspirin has negative health benefits, and it does nothing. Like, for decades, it was like,
the miracle
take baby aspirin every day. Well, it turns out actually that's more likely to give you an adverse health problem than to help you. But they can't just, like, if they never said the other thing, and then this study came out, they'd be like, crazy new finding, whatever. But because it's...
Oh, we were wrong.
Yeah. Like, that's why I keep saying, when the sulforaphane glucoraphanin becomes the next superfood, and everyone's like, broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, cruciferous vegetables, they're going to be like, yeah. But when they realize they were wrong about saturated fat, they're just like, oh, we're just going to, like...
You guys can know this if you want.
It's just scary. I mean, you got to be like, so yeah. That's why I love Twitter, because if you find the right people on Twitter that care about certain domains, they'll filter all the content for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when a lot of news stuff happens, I like to wait a couple days, and then the best articles, because I try to follow people that are way smarter than me, the best articles usually float to the top, and then I'll read those articles. It's,
Elk meat, DMT, Dr. Rhonda Patrick.
She's low-key, babe. Yeah, Rhonda Patrick is great. Like, here's another example of, so we were just talking about vaccines and autism.
Mm-hmm.
You know that autism causes vaccines? So there's an article that was just published in a medical journal that Rhonda shared that said they found a link between, I think it was pesticide exposure, prenatal pesticide exposure, and autism. And I was like, wow, it's pretty crazy. And we always say correlation does not mean causation. So this study was kind of a loose study. So I clicked on it, and one of the popular replies to it was this other scientist being like, this is a bad study. You shouldn't be sharing this. It's not entirely clear. And then I was like, oh shit, is Rhonda wrong? So I clicked on that guy's stuff, and I read the back and forth between these two scientists talking about it, and her defending her point, him defending his point. She's like, well, yeah, it's not super clear, but it's clearer than anything else you've had before, and it's definitely, there's other studies that have been similar to this that have shown similar things, so that's why I believe it's worth sharing. So it's like, for me, 2 minutes of looking into it, it's like, all right, cool. So I read the article on the study, looked at the numbers, like, all right, so this is somewhat pertinent. It's not chiseled in stone, but it's better than, and it makes sense, like pesticides and herbicides that are illegal in Europe that we still use. It's like, well,
yeah.
Because there's issues with it, it causes cancer. Prenatal exposures is certainly gonna. Is it prenatal? Neonatal? I don't know. I'm not a freaking doctor. But
work.
You what?
I go to work.
Oh, I didn't realize how late it was. All right, yeah. So we'll just wrap it up. So yeah, be skeptical. Make sure you're looking into your stuff, because you never know when there's.
You are fake news.
A lot of fake news out there.
You are fake news.
So yeah,
That was a good one. I like that.
Hopefully this was not too rambly and just a nice break from the really dense stuff. I'm gonna do some homework and we'll get some more out soon.
Sweet.
That was a minute, hour, 2 minutes. So yeah, this is Wrench Life. Ooh, with a Y. Nothing more valuable than feeling good. Let us know what you think.
Yes.
If you like the podcast, please share it with your friends or on Facebook or whatever. Just help get the message out there. We want to make your life better. We want you to feel better.
Trying to get to 20 listeners by 2020.
Yes, 20 listeners. That's our new motto. 20 by 2020. But really, I want to make your life better. I want you to feel better. I want you to get up every morning and not feel groggy like Blaise does.
Yeah, I feel awful.
We're going to work on that.
Yeah.
I think you have a food intolerance.
Yeah, probably. This changed my life. All right, I gotta pee.